Hey there, I am back with another Free the Pip Friday where we open up some of the rarest decks out there. And for this one, we're going to be looking at Pinocchio Vermillion from Elettra and Passione playing cards. Now, the original Pinocchio decks were released back in 2018, where the red Vermilion edition was paired with the blue Sapphire edition to form a deck of cards as beautiful tribute to the classic story of Pinocchio. But for this 2021 second edition, we're treated to brand new tuck cases, all new artwork, as well as some enhancements on the card to really give them new life. It's a great series of decks. It was actually a trio of versions that were released of the Vermilion version of the deck. There's the red edition that you see here. There were just 380 of these printed, and then the rarer silver version with just 100 of these produced. There's also a black edition that I was not fortunate enough to be able to pick up. There are only 35 of those, but we'll get a chance to look at the red and silver versions of these decks and see what they're all about. So let's get right into them. The Pinocchio deck is based on one of the most famous children's novels in history, written by Florence-born Carlo Collodi. The story of Pinocchio actually started as a series that was released one chapter at a time under the name The Story of a Puppet. It was in a weekly children's magazine way back in 1881. The series got to be really popular, and eventually the stories were compiled into a book called The Adventures of Pinocchio back in 1883. And since then, the book's been translated to about 250 different languages, making it one of the most translated books of all time. It's been adapted in lots of different forms, and of course we all know and love that Disney adaptation with the animated version in 1940. But this deck really pays tribute to the original book that started it all, and it's an homage by a brilliant Italian artist in Elettra to a true Italian classic. Now, most of you probably know at least some of the story, but the deck explores some of the characters of the mischievous puppet Pinocchio and the ones that he encounters as he embarks on his adventures. But enough of all that, let's get right into it. All right, so we're going to look at both versions of this deck. We're going to start out here with the red version of the deck. Now, the tuck case is fittingly also made in Italy by Boscheiro Newton. Their work is always some of the best in the game, absolutely impeccable, and this one is no exception. The tuck's done on a red matte paper, and it's hit with white, black, and silver foil, along with a really subtle embossing throughout. Beautiful design work on this one. The Vermilion deck in particular is inspired by a particular one of Pinocchio's stories, his visit to the Great Marionette Theater. So the front of the tuck case features a bold look of the director of the puppet show. This is a guy named Mangiafuoco, also known as the Fire Eater. And he was said to have a long jet black beard and blazing red eyes. I absolutely love the artwork and how he's depicted here on the tuck case. Really captures his sort of bold and imposing character perfectly. On the plate at the bottom gives you the name of the deck, Pinocchio Vermillion, and then you can see some of the other locations from the book as well, with the circus featured in the background. Really beautiful, bright, shining artwork on the front. As you turn to the sides, you get some little emblems and graphical elements that almost make you think of like a poster advertising the show, but you can see things like Pinocchio Vermillion or Edition 2 down here at the bottom. Same thing's repeated on the other side. You get a little bit of ad copy here on the bottom. Mentions that this is the 2021 special edition and illustrated by, as I've mentioned before, Elettra Daganello. On the top, you get a few other little bits and pieces that are nods to some of the things you'll find in the story of Pinocchio. And then on the back, you get something that looks a little bit like a page that's just ripped right out of the storybook. So some of the artwork that you see here, very much in the style of some of the original artwork that you'll find in the book. You can see Pinocchio there in the corner with his classic long nose. And then you get this silver foiled panel that gives you a little quote from the chapter that sort of inspired the Vermilion edition of the deck, and talks about Pinocchio selling his spelling book so that he can go see the puppet show. So just talking about his visit to the Great Marionette Theater. But really cool artwork. And then it's all finished with this fantastic circular silver tuck seal here. It's done in a finish that almost feels a little bit like fabric. It's a really cool finish to it. They call it a pearlescent seal, but very cool. Pinocchio Vermillion. And then you can see it's numbered out of that 380 deck edition. So you get that hand numbered seal. Then as you open it up, you're welcomed to the Great Puppet Theater. Of course, it makes such a highlight in the book. Little pips there on the inner flaps and nothing printed on the interior of that bright red tuck case. So beautiful work on the tuck case. Absolutely love all of the artwork. It's just such a bold design to it. So fantastic work on the tuck case, both by Elettra and of course by Boscheiro Newton, who always do great work. Oh, and by the way, you may have noticed you are able to, if you pick up the decks from her now, you're able to get them signed, which is pretty cool. So I have a signed edition of the deck. All right, so that is the tuck case. Let's get into the cards. And the first thing you're gonna notice is the beautiful bold red color. This is an edge painting technique, so not your classic gilding. So it has kind of a matte finish, but that bright red addition is really the change from the original version of the deck. So all the cards we're gonna see here are the same as you can find in the Vermillion edition, but the real enhancement in addition to the tuck case is this edge printing. And true to form with everything else in the deck, the edge printing was also done in Italy. So lots of different elements of this that were done in Italy, which is really cool. But beautiful look to it. I love that sort of matte finish to it. Kind of has a rougher feel to it as well. But really cool, unique look, and one that you don't see on too many different decks. All right, but now let's get into the cards. And we'll start with the back design. Beautiful kind of shimmery metallic red color on this one, and gives you a great classic feeling back design in terms of the shape and the composition, but lots of cool little story elements. Of course, you get the puppet here, Pinocchio in the center, and then kind of looming over the stage is Fire Eater himself, Mangiafuoco, the Fire Eater that we saw on the tuck case with his long flowing beard off to the side, the puppet master there with that kind of angry look on his face. Really cool feel to this overall, the circular elements that just sort of tie everything together, and then finishing out with a nice thin white poker border. So great tribute to the puppet theater there. And I really like that red metallic. It's a great shine to it overall. So there's your back design, love it. And then you get a pair of jokers. Here you get a little peek at some more of Elettra's artwork. Great classic bold style, and paying tribute to a couple of the more minor characters from the book. So starting out with the first one, you get this giant dove here, done in a mixture of that gold metallic inks and then little hits of red on it. And then against this sort of backdrop of that circular element with the stars all over it, kind of looks like a coin or a stained glass window behind him. But this dove actually plays a small role in the book. Is a dove who gives Pinocchio a ride over 1,000 kilometers, so carries Pinocchio on his quest to go find his father Geppetto. Very cool look to it, and of course includes a nice little extra touch here with that 2 of diamonds reveal in his beak. And then Joker in the corners. The second Joker, the Black Joker, features a character known as the Green Fisherman, who is at one point in the books mistakes Pinocchio for a fish and tries to eat him. And you can see the fish kind of caught in his net there. And once again, another little card reveal there with the 9 of clubs. So very cool artwork, nice little hits of colors. This one replaces that gold metallic ink with some silver metallic ink. So I like the really liberal use of different colors of metallics throughout the deck. All right, so there's your 2 jokers. You also get a double backer gaff card, always a nice addition, and an ad card here for Pinocchio Vermillion, as well as the, try my Italian here, Fondazione Nazionale Carlo Collodi, which is the National Foundation of Carlo Collodi. Basically, it's a group that's dedicated to preserving the history and culture of Pinocchio and his story. So very cool little look of Pinocchio grinning there in the center as well. Very nice little ad card. All right, now into the deck, and we're really quickly going to go through the numbers and the pips on these first of all. So the pips on these all do have a custom shape to them, kind of a rounded shape with that little dot underneath, giving it a kind of very unique feel. You get the backdrop of that large circular stained glass window almost, and then custom font and index on the corner there. But pretty classic layout to the pips. You'll get some that have a slightly different layout, but very familiar layout overall. And as we go through these, you'll see all of the pips have their own kind of custom shape to them. but still maintaining a nice, easily readable and usable set of pips if you wanted to use this for gameplay. So then into the diamonds. So all of them kind of adopt this like slightly more curves than your classic pips. And there's your rounded spade pips as well. So there's your number cards, pretty standard, pretty classic. And then we get into the aces and the court cards. Save these for last because this is really where the story of Pinocchio is told, as you might expect. So each one of the aces and each one of the suits, or actually each one of the suits follows kind of one of the different stories. So if you remember, Pinocchio was done as a series of episodes in this magazine. And so you can imagine each chapter being released as its own issue of the weekly magazine. And so each one kind of tells its own little sub-story in Pinocchio's journeys. And so the hearts here pay tribute to the chapter that really inspired the whole deck, chapter 10, and that's the story of Pinocchio's visit to that great marionette theater. And here you can see him with a couple of his friends. This is Harlequin and Puccinella, a couple of his puppet friends who also perform at the theater, and you can see them carrying Pinocchio off there. Cool look in the middle of that heart pip. Lots, again, of that kind of metallic ink. You can see that shining gold there. And then a little bit of a quote here. The puppets recognize Pinocchio, but Fire Eater comes out and Pinocchio risks coming to a bad end. So a little snippet from the book from chapter 10 that's included there. So there's your ace. And then as we get into the court cards, we get court cards that feature beautiful two-way illustrations of some of the characters that are featured in the chapter. And here we get a better look at those two puppet friends that I mentioned, Harlequin and Puccinella. Not sure which one is which, but you'll see this one is not a true two-way court. You'll see each one is slightly different just because we have a pair of friends here. So I'll call this guy Harlequin and this guy Puccinella. I don't know, maybe I got them in reverse. But there's the two of them wearing their masks and sort of Pinocchio's puppet friends there. Love the birds flying around them. Just a great overall look to it. Lots going on here, but really cool artwork. And then turning to the queen, we get this mysterious female character here. This is one that Elettra refers to as the burlesque fairy. Is actually a character that's known in the book as the fairy with the turquoise hair. She's this recurring character that shows up at various points during Pinocchio's adventure to sort of guide him throughout his troubles and his journey. And this time she just serves as sort of a quiet audience member who's watching the show at the Great Marionette Theater. So see those beautiful shining coins around her. We'll get to those in a second. Those play a little bit of a role in the story as well. And of course, because this is the red version of the deck, the turquoise hair has been replaced with that great kind of pinkish red color. So very cool look at that one. And then of course, on the King of Hearts, we're not going to finish out the story of the Marionette Theater without another look at Fire Eater himself. With that big flowing black beard. The book says that beard flows all the way down to the floor, so much so that he's almost stepping on it. And he has that sort of menacing look on his face. Now in the story, despite how kind of imposing he is and how mean he is, he also kind of has this compassionate side. So what happens in the story, basically Pinocchio ends up interrupting one of his shows. Fire Eater's furious, about to burn Pinocchio. But as Pinocchio sort of tells his sob story of woe, Fire Eater has compassion on him, ends up sending him home and actually giving him 5 gold coins to bring to Geppetto. And so that's kind of how the story of his trip to the theater ends. So very cool look on that court card. Now those coins come into play in what's kind of a darker chapter. So we're gonna fast forward to chapter 15 here, and this little macabre image on the front here, the Spade Pit. So the Spade Pit features these dark, menacing characters in the back, all dressed in black. And of course, what stands out is that image of Pinocchio hanging there in the front. Very dark image to it. And this particular one's inspired by the story of the Fox and the Cat. You'll see the Fox and the Cat also in the animated version of the film, but they're basically a pair of grifters, right? They're con men who try to trick Pinocchio out of his 5 gold coins. And at one point in the story, they get frustrated and actually hang and try to kill Pinocchio. They're not successful, but that's the scene that's depicted here. So you can see the disguised fox and cat in the background. As we go to the 3 court cards, we'll start out here. Actually, let's start out with the king here. These are the assassins themselves, the fox and the cat, all donning their sort of black hoods there, the menacing swords in their hand, or sword in one hand, torch in the other. So this is another one of those that's two-way or a one-way court card, kind of a different image on each side. And then you get a couple of other characters. The jack here is the grave digger of this dark scene. It's basically a pair of black rabbits, so another one with a different image on each side, who carry a coffin for Pinocchio when they think he's about to die. And then our old friend the fairy makes another appearance, this time in the form of the dead girl who helps rescue Pinocchio by summoning a falcon to get him down. So very beautiful look. And you can see the sort of serene look with the arms crossed, almost like she's laying in a coffin. I love the beauty of this card. This is an absolutely fantastic, probably my favorite court card in the whole deck. All right, so there are your spades. And then we get into the clubs, and hopefully we'll kind of lighten things up a little bit here. So now we're in chapter 21, and this is the story of Pinocchio's visit to a farmer, basically a farmer, and he goes in to steal the grapes from the farmer because he's hungry. And so here's Pinocchio kind of sneaking his way in. You got the vines from the vines all around, and so that's obviously where he gets the grapes from. See little bushels of or bunches of grapes hanging there, and then this dog house with a collar in the back. And so what ends up happening is the farmer, who we see depicted here on the King of Clubs, actually catches Pinocchio while he's trying to steal the grapes and decides to chain him up and turn him into his guard dog. And so that's why we saw the dog house there. You can see the mean look on the farmer's face there. And then as we go to the Jack of Clubs, so while he's a guard dog for the farmer, Pinocchio actually ends up catching these guys. They're called the Beach Martins, basically the thieves who Pinocchio managed to catch, and he wins his freedom from the farmer. So you can see the classic looking bandits there, complete with the black and white striped shirts and their little bag of grapes that they're trying to steal. But Pinocchio manages to catch him and win his freedom. And we get yet another look at the blue fairy, or the fairy with the turquoise hair. And this time she appears as simply the good woman who helps quench Pinocchio's thirst on his journey when he makes his way to a place called the Island of the Busy Bees. So on this one, you can see the bees flying around because obviously she's on the Island of the Bees, and the big jug of water that she uses to quench Pinocchio's thirst. Another really beautiful card. All right, and then finally we go to the diamonds, and this one is chapter 32, another kind of bizarre story. And if you saw the animated film, you may remember a version of this. So as this one goes, apparently Pinocchio at one point found himself, he woke up one morning and found that he and his friend had been transformed into donkeys. And so you can see him here with the donkey ears starting to sprout, his trademark long nose there, and kind of that look of shock and alarm on his face. And of course, that isn't where his story ends. So because of his sort of bizarre appearance, he ends up getting sold to the circus. And so you can see the sort of circus flags around as well. In the chapter, he's joined by his friend here, this Jack of Diamonds. This is a character named Candlewick, Pinocchio's best friend. He was also turned into a donkey, so you can see those donkey ears. Definitely a mischievous character. Obviously, you can tell that from his face there. And he's even got the little slingshot there. And then when they're sold into the circus, this is the ringmaster of the show, buys Pinocchio and forces him to perform in the show. So with the classic whip and very familiar ringmaster outfit. And then finally, of course, one last look at the blue fairy. This is the lady with the medallion, another one who crosses paths with him, and she's just a common spectator at the circus with a little banner flag waving in her hands. So there you go, the last of the cards. My favorites definitely are those queens, those 4 different aspects of the fairy. I think it's a really beautiful touch throughout. And that is the deck. That's the story of it. So that is one version of the deck, but let's take a quick look at the silver version of the deck. So we get some of the same artwork, but this time on this textured pearlescent stock, this silver stock. Same colors of foil on there, but gives you kind of more of a black and white feel to the deck overall. Same beautiful artwork all the way throughout. The tuck seal this time, instead of that sort of fabric-y texture, is done in a metallic texture. And of course, you can see these are numbered out of just 100, so a much rarer edition. But rare or not, we're still gonna break into it. So let's get into it. Once again, we're welcome to the Great Puppet Theater. And you can see another look at that silver pearlescent. And this one, instead of the red edge printing, this one is silver gilded. So brilliant, shiny silver foil. Nice reflective look to it overall. You can see my thumb there in the bottom. Beautiful mirror finish, which is a great, interesting contrast against that metallic red of the back design of the cards. Now, for me personally, while this is the rarer version of the deck, I much prefer the black or the red painted version of it. I think that red matched with the face of the card, or the back design of the cards, I think is a much better look overall. But silver, great extra addition as well. So other than that, all the cards are the same. So it's really just the edges there that are the difference between the decks. So beautiful work on these. Absolutely fantastic decks. Love a deck that really tells a story, and these do. Now, as far as handling, if you are to open these up and really want to make use of them, you know, that edge printing or the gilding is going to require a little bit of breaking in, but once you do, it's not bad handling at all. These do handle still very well. Nice thin stock to them, so you can still definitely use this deck if you want to. That said, obviously with a deck this rare, most people are going to keep this sealed up and try to keep it in pristine condition, and can't really fault anybody for that. But anyway, that is it. That is the look at Pinocchio Vermillion 2nd edition. Absolutely fantastic deck. Loved getting a chance to free the pip on this one. Love the artwork, love the story, and this sort of homage to this classic of Italian literature. So kudos to Elettra, kudos to Passione, kudos to Boscheiro and Newton for the tuck cases. Just great job all around. This is a great one to pick up. Now, there are still a couple of these, particularly the red edition, that are available. So I'll put a link down in the description if you want to pick one up for yourself. I can't recommend it highly enough. Great job on this one. So anyway, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed this look, and make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews, more unboxings, and of course, more Free the Pip Friday. That's it for now, and I'll see you for the next one.